one! A quiet breeze rustled through the long dark curls of Gloria's hair. She brushed a few low strands from her face and glanced demurely up through her lashes at the beautiful man sitting across from her. His brown hair gleamed with golden strands in the sunlight. Bright eyes kept their steady gaze upon her, and a strong face smiled soothingly at her. The man's teeth cracked in words, then came forth a deep and musical voice that denoted the finest of masculine tone.
What would you say to that, dear Gloria?
Oh, Lake, the days pour forth like spilled milk over a table. To accompany you at the New Epoch Fair would be simply a divine beginning to a new year.
Oh, my sweet Gloria.
Lake whispered as the leaves rustled overhead.
Do you remember when we used to run through the sweet potato fields? I remember how your dress fluttered about you, like a fluffy cloud in springtime.
Gloria pursed her voluptuous scarlet lips and leaned towards Lake with eyes wanting to close. Lake, staring at Gloria's almost flawless complexion, caught a grip of fear, a shudder in her breath. As she neared towards him, he turned his head.
I must be going, Gloria.
He gave her a quick kiss on the forehead and headed back to his father's estate. Mounting his majestic chestnut stallion, Lake cantered over the rolling green fields. Errant breezes tousled his rich mane of well-maintained hair. As he neared the stables of his father's estate, he leapt lightfully from the saddle and tossed his gilded reins to a stable boy before trotting lightly up the white steps from the gardens.
Sweet Lake!
The refined, breathy voice of his mother came floating down to him.
Milady Mother!
Lake cried happily, his arms outstretched to embrace her, and his lips puckered to brush her cheek.
Another fine day of teaching the Grubber children their letters? So sweet is your heart. But where is father? Has he not yet returned from the meetings of the great?
Nay, my son, he is not. Not though a fortnight has passed. I fear it shall drag on longer than ever before. They have so many matters of import to discuss. Why, deciding the fate of the humpback witch took 3 days.
If he does not return soon, he will fail to give his speech to the new servants. Where have they been locked up? Hasn't been since the throes of August that I last checked upon their quarters. I suppose I shall give them the speech in place of father. As a sprouting lord, it would do me well to do a little governing.
His mother looked keenly upon her young son.
The new servants are being housed on the opposite side of the back 40. Go on and speak to them, if you wish.
Lake reached the servant quarters to find 2 unfamiliar faces at the door. When they saw Lake approach with such a gallant gait, they put their eyes down.
Arise, young well-doers. Do not shield me from the wealth of your spirits. Let me see your eyes, for we are all brethren, no?
The first servant raised his eyes, shadowed by bushy brows. His face was clean, besides 2 splotches of faded freckles. He grinned, showing 3 teeth.
Hello, Lord. It's Kip they call me.
Well met, good Kip. Well met indeed.
Turning, he looked upon the second servant, his breath caught in a ragged gurgle. The vision of loveliness before him bored through his sight into his mind, lodging itself there firmly. Lake swallowed, trying hard to work moisture back into its abruptly drought mouth.
And what is your name, my lady?
Flores, my lord. Flores Clam. Her voice was a flowing stream of warm strawberry honey.
A most pleasant meeting, Flores. Welcome to your new home. I trust you find your apartments comfortable?
Oh, yes, indeed, me lord. I've never had my own cot before. Being born a grubber.
A grubber? So fair a face never came from a grubber family.
He wished dearly that his words could be taken back. Flora stiffened a bit, and her smile faded.
Your lordship must speak truly.
But her voice was rigid and cool. It was no longer flowing in warmth, but instead sludged along like sloggy bread.
I must leave.
Lake lowered his head and departed to meet the other new arrivals. His smile did not regain its former luster that day. No fair face did the young lord lay his eyes upon that hallowed eve. He found his mind wandering to the thought of her red hair that lay like cherry molasses upon a warmed pan, and her eyes that looked like two blueberries set in a saucer of milk. Lake felt a stirring deep within his chest, unlike any he had ever felt before. He did not know what to make of it, and he was frightened. He ran into the acreage that separated the servant quarters from the living quarters and sang to the barren trees as dead leaves crunched beneath his feet.
Never have I dreamed a fairer dream. Never has the world felt so alive. If dream it is, so do my cry. If real as day, may it never die. I was a child when first alone, yet love's true light was never felt. As if in moonlight I've only danced. Now the sun's given me a second chance. Thunder gods, what has become of me? But does the moon not give light? A light less sure, but still love first. Now my heart is split in two. My greatest delight, Gloria, has become my ruin. Gloria. Forgive me, Gloria. Forgive me.
Act 2. Treading on light feet, Gloria, arm in arm with Lake, gazed upon the lights of the New Epoch Fair, eyes shining like stars in a midsummer's night sky.
Truly?
She laughed at Lake's anecdote, leaning in to stroke his strong shoulder with her silky head.
Surely they must have realized.
No, indeed. I must confess, I may have failed to tell them the entirety of this scandalous activity.
Lake insisted, chuckling richly. A cartwheeling clown spiraled past the two lovers, whooping loudly. Gloria laughed like chimes of heaven. She glanced at Lake and smiled at his cut jaw and dancing eyes. How could she do anything else? He looked down and her heart fluttered. She placed a hand on his stomach and pulled closer to his side, and he wrapped his strong arm around her shoulders.
Look there!
Lake said as he pointed to their right. Gloria's face erupted in gaiety as she beheld a magnificent feast strewn upon a table that seemed to stretch into eternity.
Oh, this festival is so gay. Do you know what it makes me think of, my dear Lake? Do you think we will marry someday? I hope our wedding to be so jovial.
Gloria exclaimed. Lake glanced at her inquisitively.
Yes. Perhaps someday we shall have such a merry occasion together.
Lake responded distantly.
My son,
A voice boomed.
Lake, come and bring your darling Gloria.
Gloria thought Lake seemed taken aback as the whole crowd turned to him. The Baron and his wife, Lake's parents, were seated on the highest podium in the fair. Lake grasped Gloria's hand and they ran with a skip to the Baron's seat. Gloria's heart was racing. Though she had dreamed of it as a girl, she had never been introduced to the people of Yerdenlock before in the company of Lake. The Baron stood, a smile melting out of his hard face.
I give to you my son, Lake Mifflewood, with his darling Gloria Fetterworth accompanying him. May we drink to their health together. Anything to add, Nat?
The Baron turned to his wife. Augustly glamorous in her deep purple gown, Matilda Mifflewood swept up beside her husband and declared brightly,
I think we've had words enough for now, heart of my heart. It is time now for dancing.
With that, she collected the Baron's hand and pulled him onto the ballroom floor. A mahogany dais gilded with gold and damasked with a rainbow myriad of precious gems.
My lord?
Gloria asked with a chaste smile, and she held her hand, trembling with elation as he took it with his warm, strong grasp. Together they twirled onto the dance floor, flitting across the polished wood like angels astride the threads of Elysium. For a time, as they traded partners into the complex weave of merry folk, all was blithe. Suddenly, Lake's gaze flicked away from hers, his face fluctuating between intrigue and perplexion.
What draws your gaze, my dear?
Naught, but nothing.
Oh, good. I would not have you lost now at the height of our bliss.
The high notes of the violin that had accompanied the dance brought the waltz to its end. Lake released her hands and glanced behind him. A pang of fear riddled Gloria. What had so distracted him? She took his arm.
Would you not care to join me at the punch?
Indeed, lovely Gloria. A fine, cool punch would do well to quench the thirst brought out by the dance.
They strolled to the long table where the punch was set and took up cups. A red-haired girl was there, taking 2 glasses. Gloria did not know her, but she saw Lake's eyes drink in the red hair.
Lake, come. Let us get some air. This place is too full, and I feel faint.
Gloria pulled Lake by the arm as she led him to the balcony that overlooked the lush lands of Yerdenlock. The moon was high in the dark blue-hued sky. The stars twinkled gleefully, and the sounds of crickets chirping lightly caressed their ears.
Oh, Lake, what a perfect night this has been. As I think of my future, I just can't see it without you.
Gloria swooned. Gloria pulled Lake closer and lifted her head to kiss him upon his still lips. The two kissed, but only for a moment before Lake pulled away, his gaze searching the room behind. Gloria just managed to steal a glimpse of the red-haired maid running out of sight. Gloria took a step back and crossed her arms, a cold breeze shuffling the tail of her furled dress.
What is it, Lake? You seem distant, as if I am sharing this moment with myself, while you are living in some dream. Can you hear my voice, Lake? It cries out for your love.
Lake stepped close again and set a cold hand upon her shoulder, but she shrugged it off.
You have been my light, Gloria, the moon in my darkest night. This shall I never forget. But
But what?
Interrupted Gloria, a liquid crystal rolling down her cheek.
This is what I cannot understand. What else do you have that is not with me?
I am in torment. Dear Gloria, my heart is torn asunder. A moment, I pray. May we speak tomorrow. I must take my time to search my soul to its yawning depths.
His face matched his words, a rolling tempest of conflicting emotions. Gloria nodded, schooling her face to stillness. But behind the windows of her eyes a cobweb of brooding darkened her soul. As Lake leaned over her hand, kissing it with a brief touch of his lips, and strode away, she looked out over the balcony. She turned back briefly, staring after him. He was so beautiful. She could not but wonder, was their future as secure as she'd once assumed?
What could I have done to move his gaze from me? What could have happened to the love that we once shared? Could it be his love was only ever fake? Has his heart changed? Was it ever truly mine? Has his mind become deranged? No, it is not true. Our love is real. I blame not us, not him nor I. It is that touch, that foul grubber, that red vixen, that vixen.
Act 3. Flores dumped the chamber pots into the gutter with a moan of exhaustion. The waist splashed, and she just managed to avoid the aqueous interloper before it violated her cardinal hair. Flordes looked to the horizon and dreamed of a life free of this torment. A voice beckoned to her from behind. It was Kip. She sighed and tried to pretend that she hadn't heard him. Kip had taken an obvious liking to her, and on many occasions attempted to win her love, but had always been met with disinterest and disgust.
Oi! Och, Niles and I got a letter here for you.
Kip shouted. Flordes was shocked. She had never received mail before. Flordes opened the envelope and found an elegantly written letter inside.
Dear Flordes, I write to you on this occasion in a very serious manner. I regret to share the news with you that your father has died during the night of Midsummer's Eve. The cause of death is unknown. Enclosed in this envelope is the sum of your father's wealth, which is your inheritance. Deepest regards, Dr. Shrewman.
Flordes looked into the envelope and pulled out 2 small coins. Even as she began to grieve, her heart fracturing into pieces smaller than the coins that was her only cold comfort. The sound of triumphant hooves upon verdant lawns approached. She turned in time to see Lake leap from his noble steed, landing gracefully with a twirl of his crimson cloak.
Lady, are you well?
Lake questioned, his face full of concern. His voice rolled off his handsome tongue like a dozen kegs of the finest mead loosed downhill.
Mine father hath fallen into the grave.
She felt a tear form in her eye. She looked down and began to weep. She felt something strong, yet soft, tender and warm take her chin. A softly calloused thumb stroked the tear off her cheek. As her face was brought up, she found herself looking into brilliant stars encapsulated within diamonds. Lake's eyes. What compassion in those eyes! A bull nose was less than a foot from her. She could smell him. It was as though she smelled fresh rain in a pure meadow. Her heart stopped a beat, and her sadness thawed.
Alas,
Breathed Lake under his breath.
like a trove of gold, hidden deep within the castle of a dark and dank, faraway place, are you to me. A forbidden love, of a boaten affection, and ill-licked yearning. May Golzark, the rumble god, strike me down for saying it. But Flordes, ever since I laid my eyes upon thee, I hath been stricken with love, like a tot squalls for nourishment.
Flordes blushed, her cheeks swaddled in butterberry cream.
I don't know what to say, Lake.
Her tongue fell numb as all manner of passion, desire, and trepidation filtered through her mind to one sudden awareness of Lake's all-consuming possession of her longing. She looked with the same longing deep into Lake's eyes, then to the corner of his mouth that glazed like caramelized syrup.
Like a thief that comes in the night, you have come to steal my heart, my mind, my every desire.
She inched closer to him, until she could feel his breath on her brow. But in the moment he began to stoop towards her, she recoiled.
What? What is it?
Lake inquired. Flordes turned away, one slender hand coming up to her bosom, as if to stem off the tide of feelings that welled within her heart.
Gloria,
She whispered, imbuing the single word with all the confusion, disappointment, hope, joy, elation, and consternation she felt.
you are promised to another. I will not be the cause of another woman's anguish, for that is all that awaits any whom you spurn.
Oh, Flordes, she was not my choice. She was promised to me when she was born. I was but a boy. And truly, I do love her as a sister. But no more than that. Am I to be given no choice of love? You would be my choice, if only you will have me.
Lake cried as he took her shoulders in his lovely hands. She gazed into his eyes and marveled at their intensity. His words flowed like sweet water. His words stirred something in Flores, but she could not bear any longer the pain of looking into the eyes of her beloved. So she fled, tore herself from his grasp, and dashed towards the woods.
Flores!
Lake cried in anguish behind her, but she would not stop and instead entered the cover of the trees. Thorns tore at her and she eventually fell at the shore of a little pond. Sobs racked her frame.
Oh, peace be upon me. Oh, where am I to go? What am I to do? All of my life was like this water so clear, desires so plain, 'twas a stranger to tears. But now like a fish in a net I am caught. Am I to love who I know I simply should not? And love like you know, not soft like fine silk. His blood it is noble, not of my ilk, but I wonder if I gave this feeling a chance. Perhaps on that day in our love could we dance? Could we dance? Oh, could it be? Oh, what have I done? What am I to do? It matters not, for the toads will so croak. My love matters not, my breath will soon choke. For if love is eternal, then it must be true. It cannot dissolve like spring morning dew. It cannot dissolve like spring morning dew. It cannot. But what am I to do? What am I to do?
Act 4. A green globe of swirling tempers let off a jade-colored light into a damp, foggy, candlelit room under a mossy roof. A hand, gnarled from years' craving and hunger, clawed at the viridescent orb. A cracked chuckle blew a few wisps of ashen hair from a shadowed face.
Love? Love? No love can break the crockery of my prophecy! Only pain and blood.
Lake sat, disconsolate upon the highest roof, the tallest tower within his father's estate. Darkening skies matched his somber mood. Agony stabbed at his heart. If it had been a dagger, his blood would have flowed down onto the manor grounds like the coming rain. He felt like laughing, bitterly. The woman he had been meant to marry since childhood was not the love of his life. Once he thought she might be, but that was before he knew the painfully sweet bite of true love. Flores. She was the only woman for him, but she would not love him for fear of impropriety. He did laugh then, crackling in apparent madness as the swirling storm of crowds descended with peals of thunder.
Fie upon fate for such dastardly conniving against my joy!
he roared. Then he stood and thunder boomed like 1,000 cannons. That same moment, lightning struck the fields. His vision blurred. Lake raised his fist to the sky and let loose a cry of anger and anguish.
If I cannot have Florus, then what is my choice? To take as my wife a woman whom I love without passion, or to live alone for what remains of my life? No! I will have the woman of my choice. I must!
Blake stormed down the tower's stairs to search for his true love. As he exited the grounds of the estate, robes twirling about him as the wind picked up its fury, he looked into the howling tempest above and screaming Florus's name into the darkness.
Get into the house! Quickly! The storm will be the end of all of us!
A servant shouted. Florus heeded the warning and ran towards the servant quarters to seek refuge from the burgeoning cyclone that formed above them. As she ran towards her safe haven, she felt a burst of pain upon her nape. Due to the quickness of her pace and the fear in her heart, she was unable to discern the cause, but she began to feel a warm trickle running down her back. Florus swooned, and as she fell into the wet grass, she caught a glimpse of what seemed to be a tall but slender rodent of sorts, with red eyes and pointed teeth. Then all was black. When Florus awoke, she was slumped over a sturdy knee in the strong arms of Lake. She looked to see his eyes clouded and pale. With hair matted to his face with blood, she moaned, coming to her senses.
Lake! You're hurt!
Shh, my love. Mine blood still runs through my veins and fool. That which you see is from mine assailant. Fear not, for that wretched beast sucked its last breath before I rent its throat from its neck.
Lake spoke gently, brushing a few cherry strands of hair off her face. Florus was disgusted. Then she felt a sudden pain on her face, and it began to feel as though it would blister.
That is filthy, but it is well.
The sun has come out,
Lake said, smiling. Florus raised her hand to her face and felt it begin to hurt as well, and the sun hit her eyes. Oh, how it seared.
I must get inside. Please leave me. There can be nothing between us.
And with strength unknown to her, she stood and dashed to the cottage, leaving Lake staring. The darkness of the cottage cooled her skin, but the smells were sharper. The chamber pots seemed to reek beyond their normalcy.
Where's the lights?
Keep asked, as he rummaged in the room as though it were dark, his hands outstretched before him.
What need of lights?
Florus asked, for it was clear as day in the interior. But then she realized. The shutters had been closed against the storm and no candle burned. It should have been dark as midnight in the cabin. What had happened? Kip lit a candle and held it aloft.
Florus, are you okay? You look wrong.
Florus looked at Kip, her eyes darting and lips quivering as they turned into a smile.
Oh, Kip. All these days I've been searching for something that could not be found. Florus?
Kip asked again.
I love you, Kip.
She said as she walked towards him.
I always knew deep inside that you were the one for me.
Kip stood dumbfounded as she edged ever nearer.
I don't know what to say.
Shh, whispered Florus as she stood inches away. The winds howled outside and a loud crack of lightning shook the foundations. Florus took Kip's hand and held it in her own.
Your hands are so warm, so tender and tempting. You don't seem right.
Kip said wordly as he tried to back away, but Florus tightened her grip. Kip looked in utter horror as Florus' canines grew into pointed rapiers. She dug her sharp nails into the sides of his head with unworldly strength and bit deep into the side of his neck. Kip was powerless to the vigor of the assault. like to breathing or the ebb and flow of the tide. Flora sucked into Kip's blood, then released. Sucked in, then release. Torment was personified in Floris's eyes, but her hunger for blood was insatiable. Kip began to fade into darkness as Floris continued to feed. The faint scrape of boots came to Lake's ears as he hesitated by the door. Hand set to knob, torn between opening it to reveal his desire or leaving it closed to hold on a little longer to his former life. In that moment of incertitude, he felt a gentle touch upon his arm. Turning, he looked into the yearning eyes of Gloria. Pools of midnight set amidst a field of pure, snowy white.
Lake! What is happening?
She breathed.
I do not fully know. I love another with a passion I never had for you, yet I cannot fully abandon my affections for you. I am torn between two feelings. You are my steady beating heart, a never-ending boon. Yet in yonder cabin there is a woman who brings my heart to quicken, an excitement that does not leave. How can I choose? I cannot reject even love.
Gloria's love for Lake was of the purest kind.
I will not presume to say that our courtship was one of choosing. I will not bind you on that account. Yet, if you will let me advise you, this girl is new to you, and have I not known you better than any other? Let me meet her, and decide if she is good enough for you.
Lake nodded. They entered the cottage, and therein was blood pooling and Flora standing, drenched in hot blood, and a dead Kip pale and torn on the floor. The cottage's other inhabitants cowered in the corner. As he witnessed the gruesome display that was strewn before him, Lake deftly unsheathed his dirk.
What is this? What has happened here?
He screamed. The servants, trembling in fear, spoke not, stricken by fear at what they had just witnessed. But Flora spoke with a voice calmer than the full moon in winter.
Poor Kip.
She said quietly, voice seeming void of life.
I tried to stop him, but I was too late and could not stop the self-inflicting blow.
Ah! This one is a rogue dressed as an angel. Can't you see what has happened here, Lake? She has been poisoning us all from the very beginning. She turned you away from me.
Shouted Gloria as she looked on. Lake looked on with spiteful admiration.
Floris, I don't know what to think.
He looked at Kip's blood saturated in her clothes and painting her chin and neck.
I thought I knew you, Floris. I thought it was you in my dreams. I thought it was you that would take my heart and make it whole. Is there nothing left of the cherry blossom of spring that once caressed my weeping soul? I loved you, Floris.
Lake fell to his knees in agony. Gloria tensed as she watched Floris's eyes cloud over to blood orange red, and she took a few steps back towards the fireplace. In Floris's mind, she entered a renewed state of rampant hysteria. Through it seemed a glowing peace was over her. She approached Lake and knelt beside him,
I love you too, Lake.
leaning in as if to plant a tender kiss upon his supple neck. Lake closed his eyes, quivering in expectation of ecstasy, oblivious to the sudden transformation that overtook Floris's features like a swarm of insects bursting forth from their hive. Her taloned hands reached out to clutch Lake's head in an infrangible embrace, and a single vermilion tear trickled from her sanguine eye. Without warning, blood and gore exploded across the room. Flora staggered back against the opposite wall, a gaping hole in her abdomen leaking the rended remains of her organs across the slippery, red floor. Gloria, head held high and eyes blazed in defiance, stood with a heavy woodman's axe held in her hands. She stood before Lake, face fixed in a rictus of cold fury. Coolly she watched as Floris's body began to heal, drawing itself together until her smooth, shapely stomach was whole again, as unblemished as that of a newborn babe. Flora screamed like an eagle and broke down the door to flee. Her skin fizzled, but she did not stop, and she was in the woods within seconds. Gloria howled and triumphed, and it was akin to a wolf. With eyes still blazing, she went running after her prey, axe held high and a large cleaver taken from the kitchen table. Blood pouring down his chest, Lake was astounded. Had Gloria betrayed him? Tearing his blood-soaked shirt from his back, he stood, with sweat of fear slicking his wet forearm muscles as he went running after the two women, dagger in hand.
Gloria! What have you done? Floris, why? Oh, my loves, come back!
He was mad with emotions that he could not fathom, and somehow Gloria outpaced him easily. He entered the woods and felt the thorns tear his flesh. Blood flowed down his arms and chest. He heard screaming and howling and screeches.
I am coming!
He yelled louder than a thunderbolt. Calignosity pullulated in a perfunctory rapidity. The clouds seemed to clamor and lament in their spacious prison, aloft as they watched the events unfold. Another thunderbolt clapped, and the echoes sounded of a cracking sorcerer in a faraway place. Lake was filled with horror as a truly horrific scene was presented to him, unlike any he had ever seen before. Floris lay, swoon and disfigured, twisted and bent, speared through the abdomen by a young spruce that bent beneath her weight. Above her stood Gloria, bloodied wood axe in hand, breathing deeply and staring into a void. The void that eclipsed the most unfathomable circumstances possible, bewitching her deepest consolation of life and love. Lake collapsed to his knees and wept. Gloria walked towards him slowly and dropped the axe onto the blood-wetted soil.
You killed her. She's dead.
Lake sobbed.
Her death was guaranteed the moment she stepped between us, Lake.
Lake looked up into Gloria's eyes as she wiped a trickle of blood from her neck.
I cannot speak.
Lake gasped.
Then don't. It is only us now, as it was meant to be from the very beginning. Do you remember when we were kids? And we used to wander through these woods? Just the two of us?
Gloria responded as she came closer. Lake looked on and remained silent.
I love you, Lake.